Hey,
Hi.
hi. So I'm Kami. I write for the mamadiaries.com. Thank you guys both so much for talking with me today.
Sure.
Sure. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you both as well. So I'd like to start off by asking what was the inspiration behind bringing Frog and Toad on screen?
Well,
Adam, you're good at answering this one.
we've been fighting people off with sticks
Yeah.
for 35 years, really. People have wanted to do something with Frog and Toad for a very long time. And we've sort of started and stopped at various times throughout the decades. And this time it finally felt right. As I've mentioned many other times on other interviews, our original plan was always to make a feature-length animated movie because that seemed to be what was happening with a lot of classic children's literature.
Mhm.
And we even went down that road a number of times, and the scripts never really felt right. The stories got too big, too swashbuckling, too many volcanoes and dragons and things. And the Frog and Toad stories they're little.
Yeah.
So putting them on TV and doing these little 11-minute stories. I mean, even stretching the stories out to 11 minutes
It's tough.
is sort of remarkable.
Yeah.
But they work so much better as small little chapters. You could argue that the dragons and giants story is sort of a swashbuckler, but in general, they're small moments,
Right. It's
and they
difficult to
work.
find an hour and a half or hour and a half or 15 minutes long structure that Frog and Toad can be in. It just doesn't work with them.
Right. Especially for children, that attention span too.
Right. Although there are plenty of
Yeah.
feature-length cartoons,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
definitely.
it just didn't work with these characters, and we needed to come to grips with that. It sort of we
Right.
needed to realize that it doesn't want to be a movie; it wants to be on TV. So
Yeah. And there have been other people who have been interested in doing a TV series, but it was it just seemed like the right time now. I mean, as Adam often says, it was the golden era of television was born, and suddenly people took television as a serious art form, and making these books into animation was a serious endeavor and
Right.
not on the cheap.
So, Frog and Toad's Adventures, they offer valuable life lessons. How important was that for you to maintain like that educational aspect?
I think that's secondary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's in the stories, and the stories work because they're so humane, and they're so warm, and they're so touching, and everyone can relate to them. Um, but they don't bang you over the head.
Right, right. Um, so they have such a great friendship, and how were you able to like capture that on screen authentically?
well, I think it was really the showrunner and the writers adhering to what was the language in the books, the sort of the meter and the pace of the text, and
Mm.
sort of how our father wrote, keeping true to that, keeping true to the way they looked.
Keeping
Again,
true to the way they sounded. I mean, I think the voices are perfect.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know.
So for the casting, the cast is great. Did you guys have any input on that? Were you part of the audition process?
Yes,
uh,
they sent us lots of voices to listen
yeah,
to. Yeah.
I think they did weed them down a bunch, so we would get the selects, but at that point we certainly weighed in,
Hmm.
and we had preferences, and they were good about listening to
Hmm.
our input, which was nice.
That's great. I'm a huge fan of Yvette Nicole Brown. I met her a few years ago, and she's fantastic.
Yeah, I know. I wish
Great.
there was more. She's Rabbit, isn't she?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish there was more of her, but
Yeah, right,
yeah.
right. Yeah. Um, so Frog and Toad, they've been beloved characters for so many generations. How did you kind of approach adapting their stories for a modern audience?
I don't even think that was an issue, really. I think if you stick to the stories, they are timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't compete.
Nobody wanted to pander, there's so many kids things coming out that are just slick and
There were a couple of
really
there
that,
were
yeah,
a couple of moments where maybe, and not that they were scary, but there were a few scarier images in our father's stories. I think the wolf that's chasing Frog in a dream that Toad is, or fantasy that Toad is
yeah,
having. And they rounded out his teeth a little bit in the animation because it was too scary.
right. But
There's
that
sort
was
of a
doing to the
ghostly spirit in one story. I guess he's called the Large and Terrible Frog now. And I think he was scared. I mean, my father loved horror movies,
mm,
and and he loved Grimm's fairy tales, which are terrifying.
Yeah,
So I guess in terms of modernizing, there are moments where there's a little bit of the edge taken off, which at the time when we were going through it, I sort of objected to. I was like, no, you can't get rid of that. That's good. Scare
but
the
is
kids a
that
little
is
bit.
that modernizing, or is that just skewing towards a younger
It may
audience?
just be that,
right.
Yeah,
yeah.
Things are definitely different today for that, for things that were rated differently.
right. But in terms of language, which was the most important thing to us, there was no like making it hipper.
Yeah. Hmm. My youngest son, he's 10 now, but he was very, very much into the Frog and Toad books when he was, I mean, even still, like he'll whip them out every once in a while, which is fun. I mean, they were
No.
when I was a kid.
Yeah. I was 10 when the first one came out.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I was certainly, I read it and I was aware of it, but yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
was a
I was
little,
in high school reading, Jane Austen and Dostoevsky. So I didn't really care that. I mean, I loved my father's
Of
stories very
course.
much, but I wasn't the audience.
Right. Right. Yeah. For you both, what has been the most rewarding aspect bringing Frog and Toad on screen?
Well, it gets to be seen all over the world in all these different languages. The reviews have been completely international. That's exciting.
Exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, and the books are everywhere too. I don't know how many languages that's been translated into, but so but yeah, we just hope that it's exposing either people who were familiar with it and who want to see it come to life, in animation, and people uh who aren't familiar with it.
Right. And my hope also is that they'll look up other Arnold Lobel books, because there's a whole bunch of wonderful books that he's written that are still available. I can read books which are in the same series from Harper's as Frog and Toad, like Owl at Home, Uncle Elephant, Grasshopper on
Grasshopper
the
on the
Road,
Road.
Mouse Tales, Mouse Soup. I mean, the list goes on and on. And to me, that would be the best thing about this, is that it will familiarize people with his other work.
That'd be wonderful. I think so many people are aware. I mean, I don't know anyone who's not familiar with Frog and Toad. I mean,
Right.
it's just a Frog and Toad.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Well, some adults who have never, I mean, people my age who'd never had children. Sometimes I meet people who
Yeah.
don't know who they are, but that's it.
Yeah. Generally 55 and under are
Mhm.
are aware of Frog and Toad, either from themselves, being 5 when the first book came out, or from their kids or grandkids.
Mhm.
I've always found that gratifying when I'd have friends who would say, when they'd have their kids, and there's thank God for your father, because I have to read the same goddamn book to my kid every night, and most of it is just horrible.
Boring. Yeah.
And I really enjoy reading your father's books. So you know, that's a nice story to hear. I've heard that from a number of my friends.
Well, thank you both for talking with me. That's all the questions I have.
All
But
right.
I have a question. Is this an audio interview, or are you gonna write us down? How does this work?
I do both.
Oh, okay.
This is, yeah. So I'll put this on my YouTube page, and also I will write an article on my site.
Great.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You are very welcome. It was so nice to meet both of you.
Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.